Hey, my Shuga Bears, welcome back to my channel, Bougie AF. It's your host, Nicole. It's where I say stay bougie on them. It's me feeding you feminism for the soul. It's my soul food offering. It's where I apply pressure to issues by being critical and logical. Now, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, let's get to the commentary where I can guarantee you I will be doing too much because that's just me. And like Sheree said, who's gonna check me, boo?
Hey, my Shuga Bears, we are back. So I'm still doing a little Instagram creeping out here. Don't know where it's gonna go. Don't know what's gonna pique my interest. Don't know what I'm gonna go into real hard, real deep. But I'm probably gonna go into something real hard, real deep. But if this is your first time to the channel, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. The channel's growing. I went out this week. Listen, I'm in everybody's face. Like, can you subscribe to my channel? My channel. Yes, darling. Like, I'm out here. But yeah, I can't wait to I'm really trying to grow it. I'm gonna get into promoting and paying. I'm gonna invest in myself. Like, it's not a thing, but it's gonna come. I'm on my timeline. I'm not letting folks create urgency in my life. Like, hey, it ain't popping like everybody else who just start. That's cool. My time will come. It'll come. So it's what it is. All right. So let's get back to these Instagram streets, y'all. So what we got? What's this one about? I know I chose it for some reason. So let's click. Okay, sometimes this is just the mood. That is, that is true. I use Portia's memes a lot, so she's funny. Her expressions and the shit she talks. Okay, let's get to this nigga. I mean, we've already talked about Safaree, but this week, I don't know when this was. Let me see. 7 days ago, last week, we know that what he currently has been going through with his soon-to-be ex-wife, Erica Mena, and their fallout. But there was a situation that happened before where Erica Mena and him got into an argument, and it played out on the internet where they were responding to each other. And let me tell you, people did not think Safaree was just as big of a fuckboy and goofy ass nigga as he is. Because it's like, well, I don't care what Erica did. Your son was in the hospital. It was your 40th birthday. It wasn't your 4th birthday. It wasn't your 14th birthday. You was a grown ass big boy. So I think it was that. And the way he handles things, it seems very immature. He seems as though he cuts off from communicating when he feels some sort of way and just doesn't want to deal with it. And so a lot of times these type of men, they are, Peter Panish, never growing up ass niggas. Oh, I just like to have fun. I'm not into the seriousness. They don't want to deal with that part of life, right? They always want to seem like they're always having fun. It's always laughs and jokes, and they're not a serious person, because that's what the fuck he comes across. There's no way that you can take a man serious that leaves his child in the hospital. I don't care what y'all talking about. I don't care what any man is talking about. Even the way he acted when he found out he had another kid coming, in those vain reasons. It's like, nigga. Are you really on TV acting like you're not happy about your child? And you're not strapping up? Yeah. I actually feel bad for Erica, because he's making a scene. He made it seem as though Erica waited to tell him, and she was just honest about telling him, if you around the house talking about you don't want me to have another kid because you want me to get fucking fat, I'd be scared to tell your ass too. Like, come on, call it what it is. You already told her she got too big, even though she went back down to her regular size. That just lets me know that you're just a child. You're just a child yourself, because you probably will always date younger women, because their bodies don't change. Their bodies hasn't changed yet, so they still got that 20-year-old figure, everything tight, everything in the right place. So he has a long way to grow, and we're talking about 40. So when people out there talking about why people single and shit like that, why these men are still not grown ass men by the age of 40. But shout out his mom. I like his mom. Gives me some hope, because she's not a mammy. She's a mother. Okay. She's a woman. It's like she was a woman first, and then she's his mother. Right. But yeah, I don't know nothing about that, but let me go ahead, because you can't teach your son how to be a proper man to a woman if you acting like this mammy god. Act like a woman and teach your son about what a woman needs, and talk from a place of being a woman and not a mammy. You ain't fucking your son. Keep it real with him. Like, son, I keep it real with my brother. Like, nah, that's childish. I wouldn't fuck with you. Like, dog, like the way you move, like I keep it real like that. Like, wouldn't be me. I don't even like what because that's not gonna help him. Right? So when I hear you mammies out there coddling these niggas, it's like, that's not going to help him in the long run. Keep it real into what you would want as a woman in terms of treatment and all that other stuff. Don't make these men think they right when they wrong. That'd be my problem.
Why did you come here to tell me that?
Mommy, when I found out she was 6 months, it was just so much, like, just turmoil and us not getting along. We wasn't really even in the same room. I was sleeping somewhere else. She was sleeping somewhere else.
When you're married, you're gonna argue. And you have this thing where it's like you shut down, you get silent.
Well, I don't like to argue, and I don't like to dispute, so I like to sit there and say nothing until it's forgotten about.
Women don't like that. I think you should find ways to work on that because you create problems when you do that. When you get upset and you start tweeting and say, I don't like that, man. And you wasn't raised like that. You know when it comes down to women, humans, the utmost respect. So when I see stuff like that, Skip, it hurts me. And I'm embarrassed.
Blood, real Jamaican queen come through and let them know bloodshot. Look like, I don't know. I'm going to stop talking like this before Jamaicans get on there and kick my ass. But that's a real Jamaican queen right there. She came and told her son real shit. I don't like it. Man and women, what are you doing? I'm working on my accents, y'all. But no, that's real shit. And I love seeing this because it lets you know that, he was raised better in your behavior. So when you online talking about the worst mistake you ever did was get married, no, this is not the time for that. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, getting married was one of the biggest mistakes. You do not know that woman. I'm not mad at Erica for anything she's done in terms of her relationship with him. I'll be completely honest. We don't even know what the fuck she's done. We just see her reacting to his bullshit, and that's something completely different. You got to show me where she actually is the first person to go to the social medias. Like, she's the first person to put business out. It's always been him doing it. But at the same time, her response to his shit, she's always been that girl. The moment she stepped on the scene on Love and Hip Hop, New York, and she's throwing drinks at, was that Kim Bella? Was it whoever she was arguing with, like, and she's doing all of that shit, you knew who she was. You know what I'm saying? So it's really interesting to me to see him try to act like he didn't know who she was. Like, I don't care. You just want to, I don't know. You just be following the hype and you want a certain type of woman, but then you act confused when she burns your shit. Girl, ma'am, sir, Peter Pan. You better hope she didn't pull, she probably, I felt like Erica wrote what's that Jasmine Sullivan song? You got 10 seconds? Or bust your windows or some shit. She's always been about that life. That's not new to any of us. What else? What else we got on here? We talked about that. Okay, so this was interesting to me. So, y'all know I'm a history buff. I be doing too much. It's going to be a little off cuff. But I think a lot of times there's a problem with misinformation being put out there. And this video that I'm about to show you, I seen this video and was like, that's how I was taught. Like, this is how I was taught it in high school. And I think there is a disconnect because sometimes even when I'm listening to people in Clubhouse and the way they kind of reference certain things in history and stuff that are in actual documents you can read it'd be a little bit off. So I wanted people to hear this because it's most definitely it was good. That's all I'm going to say. I thought it was good and I hope you get something from it. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you because that's what you're going to get over here. You're going to get some history over here. You're going to get some real facts over here.
Like a racial thing when really it was not. Like what it's like, how the war started.
Okay, so let me get a little lead in. The high school student Christopher Justice does a great job explaining the Confederate flag and its problems. Yeah, I'm going to play it. and then we will we'll talk about it.
It's kind of evolved into like a racial thing when really it was not started as a racial thing at all. And I think that like it should absolutely be flown like publicly.
Any other opinion as far as agreeing with him or disagreeing with him? Okay, Mr. Justice.
You do?
I'm sorry, before he gets ready to go, this is how I grew up. This was school for me. Like, this is how we talk. This is how we got down. Like, and it just was what it was. Like, you needed to come with your shit. But here we go.
You have a right to fly it. I do not think it should be flown on public property, like in front of a state house. You can also fly it at protests. But you mentioned misconceptions. There are no misconceptions about that flag. The flag that we see today is not actually the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag is similar to that of the United States. It has a blue upper right-hand corner with 7 stars in a circle, 2 red stripes, and in the middle a white stripe. The flag we see today is an interpretation of a Confederate battle flag. And the interpretation went up in the 1960s, around the time the Civil Rights Movement started. And to the point where it's not racially motivated. Then how come it's a symbol for so many groups like the KKK and the National Socialist Movement, who, as you all probably know, have white supremacist and neo-Nazi ideologies? Also, I find it ironic that people claim to be patriots when they fly that flag. The Confederates stabbed the Union in the back. They shot first, they murdered 500,000 American soldiers, and they argued that it was because of states' rights. I ask, states' rights to do what? What were we considering getting rid of at the time? Not guns, we weren't trying to raise taxes, it was slavery. We were trying to stop the expansion of slavery to the West. The Southern aristocracy panicked and left the Union. They said, we are not Americans, we are from the South, so we're starting our own country. And then they proceeded to launch numerous terrorist attacks against the Union, shooting at Fort Sumter, murdering 200 people in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay, now, Chris.
Flag, like what it's like how the war started. It's kind of evolved into like a racial.
That's important. I think we know that that's important. And I seen this and I was like, look, boy is spitting because he understood, and he's speaking in a way where he is speaking about history in context of things and how that happens, right? I think people, from what they've learned, they see the Confederate flag and they think the Confederate flag, as they see it, it means this, and this is, it comes all the way from slavery, and that these people have been holding on to this same flag for all these years, and they have been trying to bring the good old days back for themselves, and that's why they love this flag so much. When he puts it in context for you, what ended up happening, and we're talking about, he said 1960s, we're talking about Jim Crow being challenged, a way of life for Southerners being challenged. They had so many laws on the books that caused a lot of the mass immigration, mass, migration from black people moving from the South to the North because of the laws that allowed people to kill blacks without being questioned, right? That's how we have things like Emmett Till and all types of lynchings and stuff. Strange fruit, that's what that's implied. So when you hear him talk about 1960s and it being rebranded, it's sort of like that patriotism that we seen that happened in Charlottesville, where like they try to hold on to monuments and stuff. And that's also something that came about in the 1960s. Again, we were challenging, and in the 1960s, we were challenging the status quo, and people were still trying to hold on to the way things are. So they did try to erect a lot of these racist people and these statues and all this other stuff, because it was just their way of just saying that this is what we believe in. It was kind of like an intimidation factor. But on top of that, after slavery, 1776, when they did the Declaration of Independence, and they wrote the Constitution, and when they wrote the Constitution and you had the Bill of Rights and things like that, I hear a lot of people also use and talk about that 3/4. And I want to give you some context to that, because I think I never understood why people keep on bringing, I still don't on Clubhouse, why people keep on bringing up the 3/4. A lot of times I've had conversations with certain people on Clubhouse, and when using the word privilege, someone was like, well, what do you mean by privilege? Do you mean that like white people? Words don't have colors. Let's be clear. No particular word is synonymous. I hope I'm saying it right. Synonymous with one thing. So if you hear slavery and you think black people, then you're wrong, right? Because slavery has been used in all forms and not only affected black people in some type of way. If you're talking about indentured servitude, it's not a black people just only thing, right? So we got to be clear on how we think about it and when we hear the word slave, right? And same thing with privilege. It doesn't belong to white people. So no, someone can use the word privilege for the context of its meaning and not referring to white privilege. And it was just weird that someone challenged me on that. It was like, what do you mean? I was like, I mean the word privilege. I'm not quite sure. Do you not know what the meaning is? Like, you can have privilege and it not being associated with a race. So a lot of times you hear a lot of people, like every little thing they'll take out and try to associate it with race. And it's just not necessarily not the context, right? Even the context of when people talk about, if you get arrested, you are thought to be a slave again, and you're 3/4 of a human, and it's just like, enslavement worldwide, traditionally, historically, that's always been something. Enslavement is not owned by black people. It's something that has happened to all people. So when you get arrested, you are remanded to the state. You are enslaved. Stop putting a color on it. And I know what we're saying in terms of it affecting our community the most and how laws are written, but those laws were written after the fact, and it's not necessarily having to do with our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. All right, so I found the 3/4 term. So I was catching up on my shit because I like to talk my shit. So I like to make sure I read my shit, right? You get what I'm saying? Because I hate a lazy opinion. So it says United States Constitution Amendment Bill of Rights, complete text and audio. And this was really good. I also grew up, like I have a great memory, so I remember a lot. So please understand. Like, I'm someone growing up, I did remember Martin Luther King's speeches. I also remember the preamble at one point in time in life. I could recite the preamble. Like, I've always been someone who could recite a lot of information. So I'm not new to this. I've always known what my fucking superpower is. Let's see. So 2-minute 32 mark. This one was really good. So before I play it, let me read it. So a lot of times people talk about the Constitution or in our Bill of Rights, referring to black people as 3/4. And I say that it doesn't refer to blackness, right? It refers to accounting system on how we determine taxes and also how we determine like seats in the House of Representatives. And that is really important. Not because I'm not trying to say that it's not about black people, but it's not in the terms of saying as a... It's not an assessment on self-worth or how can I say this? When you say something and you're just like, this is how I look at these people, so this is why we're doing this, right? Like, I don't know how to explain. It's not an attack on, I don't want to say that. The 3/4 was not created because it was black people, if that makes sense. It wasn't created out of the hatred of black people, and I know people don't want to hear it because it just doesn't fit their agenda. But there's a whole bunch of laws that were placed on the books after slavery had ended that were affected and geared towards affecting black people in our progress, and that's something completely different, right, than what this is. This wasn't an attack on blackness. It was purely accounting system that they had to come to a compromise for, right? And I hope that translates. And if you have questions, it was literally just used for accounting system. It wasn't saying you are 3/4 of a human being because of your worth and what we think of you. It's like we have to figure some things out to make it equal, right? We need to figure out a number system that works and what we need to do in terms of our taxes. And that's literally what is outlined in here, which is the direct language that is in our Constitution that makes no reference to color. That's important. And I know people don't want to think about it, but that is extremely important. right? All right, here we go. And I'll let him read it. So,
the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct. The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative. And until such enumeration shall be made, the state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3. Massachusetts,
okay,
8.
let me find, because this is
Rhode
not the place where I want it. I'm trying to get them to. I'm trying to get to the place where they are reading out how we calculate taxes and all this other stuff. But this is just. I don't want to explain that. But this was just okay, so basically this was saying in the census that we do every 10 years, that's how we were going to determine the House, the how the House of Representatives is going to be, like how many seats people are going to get. So because this wasn't, it had not been 10 years of census data information collected, they just outlined how many people, like how many seats people were going to start off, and they were going to readjust it after they were able to do a census, right? Section 2, House of Representatives. Okay, this is where we need to be.
Of the state legislature. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. Representatives and direct taxes.
Okay, so again, look exactly to what it says, representative and direct taxes. This is not an assessment on self-worth and how we look and view black people. Let's be clear on what it was designed to do, because that is extremely important. And I know people don't want to hear that, but that is important.
Shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons.
Y'all see that, right? I just want to be clear that we are clear on what that says, because it's in terms of taxes and figuring that out, right? So you see here where it says how we determine that numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number. So a free person would be considered of the one, right? One also was considered as a whole being at the time because of the terms of there being slavery and probably like indentured servitude and all the other stuff. They generally cover it here. So they go, let me see. So a number of free persons, right, which is one, including, this is what also how you can consider a whole person for the count, those bound to service for a term of years, right, indentured servitude or any of the other stuff. Yeah. So, and exclude Indians not taxed, Indians did not have to pay, 3/4 of all other persons. So anybody who is not, a free person, right? And that says nothing about color, because that could possibly be an Indian person. So there's nothing about a color. 3/5 of all other persons. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of Congress of the United States and within every subsequent term of 10 years. And this is where our census come in that we currently use right now, that says that every 10 years we do our census that just passed, right? And then we figure out how many people are going to be in the House of Representatives. So in the meantime, they determined in such manner as they shall by law direct, the number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000 people. So for every 30,000 people, you get one House of Representative. Unless you're a state that has like a New Hampshire and like a very low, dense and unpopulated state, you're going to at least have one representative or two. It says here, have at least one representative. Yeah, so every state must have at least one representative. So if probably back then a state didn't even have 30,000 people, they would still have at least one representative. Again, I just really want to pay attention to 3/5. It wasn't to do with race, but it was more or less like we need to count people. And because the South, they just felt like it was a compromise to make sure that the South wouldn't be able to have an exorbitant amount of House of Representatives based on the numbers being inflated by their property at the time, which were slaves. And if you would have counted everyone as a whole, there would have been an inflation of representatives in Congress. That's literally what it is. It was to try to help the balance of making sure we still counted people, right? So we can be, be fair, but make sure that it's sort of even to what probably you were seeing up north, which was always at the time, right? At the time, the North is heavily more populated cities. We're about to move into the Industrial Revolution. People were moving to cities to work in factories. Like there was a lot going on that people don't want to acknowledge, right? So that's really important. So, I watched another video. Yeah, the Industrial Revolution, 1801, 1802. Like we were just moving towards a different way of life that had nothing to do with slavery. So this right here was just a way politics, right? Because people forget that part. You have to make some concessions and you have to be willing to work and across the aisle, as we say it in 2021, right? So I don't know. I hope this was a little helpful, but there's another term that I wanted to talk about because there's something else that I think that's it by that. But I just hope that ties in and I hope that makes sense to you guys about like how it's important to go get the context and get the history and figure out, like make sure that someone is just not trying to sell you a narrative in terms of history and that it is really in its rightful place when it's being told for you. And it's not just like, can you believe? Okay, but wait, what was going on? What happened? Like there's context to everything. And so we're such in a society that this clickbait in these little clips that people just think that that's enough. And it's just not enough. You really do have to go back and do this reading and get this context to understand. Yes, I am not saying that, I'm not saying anything is right, but I'm just giving you information around it so it can make sense. There's nothing in this language that says that black people are garbage. Black people are lesser than. It's none of that happening. I've spoke about it before that even if you go back and look back to when the Declaration of Independence was created, it was something that they didn't want to do. They didn't want to include slavery then, but at the same time, the people from the North, when you're trying to unite a country that just went through a revolution, you make some concessions. That's just that. So at the time when you're trying to be like, hey, let's all come together and create this union, become this great country, you can't alienate people in the South from what they feel like is their way of life. I'm not saying it's right. I know people, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying take the emotions out and think about it. The bigger picture is we come together and form a country, and we'll revisit this. In less than 100 years, it was revisited, and we had a civil war. Right? So that's the context that needs to be talked about. I know it's hard for a lot of people to think about it, but it just is what it is. I think people want me to be like more emotional and be like, look what you did to my people and da-da-da-da. It's all of that. I'm there with that type of emotion, but at the same time, I understand not everything should make me jump out the window, and I should be able to go back and analyze things a little bit to see like where it's coming from and kind of put my emotions to the side, and know when to put my emotions in it. But it's just in terms of our Declaration and Bill of Rights, we're not set up to discriminate in terms of color there was just laws placed on the book. And like that kid tried to point out to you in 1960s when we were going through the civil rights, there's a great documentary on CNN where they covered Lincoln, and they talked about what happened from a country that was okay with freeing slaves and being a part, because the North had to feel like it was worth it for themselves to participate and go into war. But at the same time, what happened? Like, why didn't Black people as a whole ascend to great progress and growth after the Civil War? And a lot of, if you go back and if you watch that documentary, you'll see that they outlined it. They talked about the laws that were created, the lynchings and all the other stuff. They talked about Andrew Jackson and his hate. You know what I mean? And how it just was. The progression of a Black people in this country did not happen because of the roadblocks that were placed in after slavery. We're talking about redlining. We're talking about discrimination being legal. We're talking about, like I said, lynchings were being okay. We're just talking with Jim Crow was implemented, right? So, you can't not ignore that part. That's it right there. That's it. Not necessarily that this says some fucking 3/5 shits because they were trying to determine who pays taxes and how many House of Representatives and all that other shit. That's not that, right? That's not that. I hope that made it easy, but I don't know. Y'all let me know. Y'all know how we do here. We keep it bougie. We keep it posh. And we keep it Black as fuck. Don't forget to get in those comments. Tell me what you think. And I'm out.